All right, let's see what else is making news around the world at the moment. We're talking with journalist Kai Chow. Kai, welcome.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Now, we have this story of Alfie Evans, who was a 2-year-old in a coma, and he was taken off life support in the UK. Just tell us about that story.
Sure. So, look, it's yet another case within a year of the last case that happened in the UK, or basically of where parents have tried to remove their very, very sick little boy from a hospital for what they hope to be a miracle treatment elsewhere, and the hospital has refused, and the courts have backed the hospitals. So it's really brought up this issue of who gets to decide the circumstances by which a child dies or seeks treatment. Is it the parents or is it the hospital and the courts? So it really has borne a lot of similarities to the Charlie Gard incident. I don't know if you remember that from about a year ago. Almost the same situation, a mitochondrial defect, a mysterious mitochondrial defect illness. The parents check the child in a hospital initially, the child's in a coma, and then they basically find, look, we think there's a better cure somewhere else, and the hospital basically holds on to the child. And it's become tremendously emotive, as it was a year ago with Charlie Gard.
But you'd imagine this would happen quite often, in that parents that think, look, I would just want to do anything for my child, particularly if it's life-threatening, whereas the hospitals say, look, we know what we're doing, you're going to jeopardise their health if you remove them.
Yeah, well, in this case, I think the controversy is because in some ways it is similar, Andrew, to those examples where parents refuse certain medical treatments, for example, for their child on ethical or religious grounds. But these cases have been a little bit different, because they're basically the hospital saying, look, this child is going to die, and we believe that they should die in these circumstances. So we're actually removing the life support from the child. And it's actually the parents here that actually say, look, we don't want to give up on the child. We want to take them elsewhere for this treatment.
And we've seen protests and the Pope being involved.
Again,
in this.
actually, so it's quite interesting. And heads of state, or certainly national leaders. So in the case of Charlie Gard, Donald Trump got involved and said, look, Charlie's welcome here for the, because the doctor who could perform the alleged miracle treatment was in the US. In this case, it's in Rome. And in both cases, the Pope has made a comment supporting the right of the parents to move their child. And Italy, for example, their defence ministry has said, we've got a plane standing by to expedite this if you were to allow it.
Kai, let's move to the States. Donald Trump and his new best buddy, Kanye West, they've bonded over Dragon Energy.
And he's come out of social media hiding, Kanye, for all of this.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it started about a week or two ago when he basically tweeted his support for Candace Owens, who's a young black female conservative activist in the US, and then he followed it on with his now very famous support of Donald Trump. So really showing probably the most prominent black conservative, if you can call it that way, supporter of Donald Trump so far. So certainly putting himself aside from many of the other celebrities. In fact, he published a text debate between him and John Legend, who apparently he's having dinner with this weekend. So it's great that you can disagree as celebrities and still get together for a feed.
But hang on, what is Dragon Energy?
Oh, come on, you possess it.
No.
I'm sure you do too.
Kai.
Look, I'm going to be very honest. I don't know many dragons, so I can't really speak into their energy levels. However, I know the way that Kanye described it in a tweet was basically as natural leadership qualities, something that he believes he shares with Donald Trump.
Is this the alpha male? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I think that goes into it, doesn't it? I mean, but some have become even all more intellectual about this Dragon Energy and relating it back to Taoism.
Well, look, I can't speak so much to the Taoist principles of Donald Trump or Kanye West.
That's a phrase I never thought I'd hear.
Isn't news great? However, look, there certainly are many people that come from a minority background, I suppose, that do believe in self-empowerment. They're very self-confident. They believe they've overcome great obstacles. And so they, and it happens even here in Australia. And that's why you do get some people, from an ethnic minority background who often do possess these more conservative self-empowerment, we can do it ourselves type of quality.
All right, Kai, now just finally, we're often debating, when should you kick your kids out of home?
Never.
Well, if you're not going to kick them out of home, When should you start charging them?
Well, this article is fascinating, right? Because it's found that, 20% of kids between 25 and 29 are still living at home. And look, I'll be honest, I'm just coming from my own cultural background and speaking to some of my Lebanese friends, it's quite normal to live at home well after many of our, how do I put this down, our Anglo background friends have been kicked out of home. And now there's pros and cons of both, obviously, right? When someone is kicked out of home, we say kicked out of home in such a casual way, when they start an independent life at the age of 18.
Encouraged to spread their wings.
At the age of 18. I think you're dreaming.
Well, they gain a lot of independence and so forth. Well, this is back when I was at university, when rents were a lot cheaper. And of course, this is one of the big issues.
You couldn't wait to get out of home.
Oh, yeah, because you could. It was actually an idea that was attainable. But I think with rents and university fees and just living costs, it's slightly less attainable these days.
Are you within your right to start charging your own kids board, if you like?
Oh, well, I certainly know that when I was at university, my parents did not charge me board. Thanks, Mum and Dad. Yeah. However, my best mate, his parents did charge him board. And he was very disgruntled about that. And we had a discussion. He said, he says, I like the Chinese way of looking at things. You're part of the family. Your family is a unit. Your parents look after your education until you start working. Of course, what is interesting is even once you start working, it seems that rents and housing still is unaffordable.
But maybe that's it. Once you have a full-time job, it's legitimate.
It's legit, yeah. Because you want to teach your kids these life skills, and you don't get things for free.
Well, apparently 1 in 5 kids is still desperately holding out against
that. And that doubles between the ages of 20 and 24.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's during your university years, so probably not a huge surprise there.
Kai, thanks for joining us.
Good to chat.
Thanks, guys.